in the Australian cyber market. For those in Australia, good morning. Here in the United States, good afternoon and welcome. I just wanted to let everybody know that we'll be recording today's session, and also there's an opportunity for you, if you want to place questions in the chat feature of the web call, we can make sure we address those in today's call. I'd like to welcome everybody and also welcome our guests from industry and from government. I'm really excited about the forum today. I'm delighted to share with everyone today an overview of the market opportunities available across Australia's cyber ecosystem and some information on the mission that we're planning for the Australian Cyber Conference, which will be held in Melbourne in October this year. We'd like to keep things informal and welcome any questions from the audience in the next 30 minutes or so. Please just feel free to add those to the chat. I'd like to start by introducing a great panel, great set of speakers today. First of all, we're going to hear from Damien Manuel, the chairperson of the Australian Information Security Association, who's responsible for running Cybercon. We'll then follow that up with an overview of the Victorian and Australian cyber environment from David Cullen. David's the Chief Information Security Officer for the Victorian Government. And then we've got a great opportunity to speak with Hansen, the CEO of Tesserent, and Susie Jones, who's the co-founder and CEO of Cynch Security, who are going to share with us some of their experiences in running successful cybersecurity companies in Victoria. And then finally, I'll be handing over to Anne Evans, the CEO of Universal Strategies Limited, who's going to share with us how US businesses can access support and funding through the California State Trade Expansion Program, STEP, to join the Cybercon delegation to Australia. So look, let's get started. I'll ask Damien to give an overview of the Australian Cyber Conference. So Damien, thanks for joining us today, and over to you.
Thanks very much. Hi, everybody. So the Australian Cyber Conference is the largest cyber security conference in the Southern Hemisphere, which is based in Victoria, Australia. The conference covers approximately 6 broad topic areas, including human factors in cybersecurity, developing secure systems and platforms, leadership and governance in cybersecurity, emerging technology, and cybersecurity operations and infrastructure. Within those 6 broad topics, however, there are 25 streams. So there's 25 concurrent streams of talks going on across the 3 days, and they could cover anything from cloud identity management, mental health, strategy, behavioral change, application vulnerability, all the way through to governance, risk and compliance. The event has over 400 speakers across the 3 days, including a social party in the evening with food and entertainment, and it's designed to help facilitate networking so you can build new business contacts and meet new people in the industry as well. Talks are generally broken down into our keynotes, featured speakers, breakout sessions, think tank talks, and ask an expert sessions. Our keynotes and featured speakers this year include Brian Cox, who's a well-known physicist, Kathy Freeman, who's an Australian sports icon, Chris Hadfield, who's a Canadian astronaut, very famous for singing the David Bowie song in space, Tony Armstrong, who's another sports legend in Australia, Paula, who's a Polish hacker, Mikko Hyppinen, and Marty Norman from NATO. This year, we're also introducing villages. And the concept of villages is to really give people the hands-on and sort of interactive learning experience. So think of, for example, a careers village, which teaches people how to find new roles and jobs, how to build their resumes, or meet prospective employers in the sector as well. We've also got a few other sort of interesting villages in the works as well, including a lock-picking village to show some of the flaws in physical security systems. Over 150 vendors and service providers will be in the exhibition halls giving talks, promoting their products and services. The event is catered. We do a morning tea with food. We do quite an extensive lunch and an afternoon tea with food as well. And that's conducted in the expo area to draw maximum number of people into the areas where sponsors and vendors can interact with them. We have delegations attending from 7 different countries, or several different countries, such as Israel, UK, Cambodia, India, and the USA as well. Typically, we see around 6,000 delegates we're expecting this year. And they range in terms of, CISO level executive directors on boards, all the way through to technical individuals. This year, we're opening the expo hall for small business owners as well, because there's an untapped market that definitely needs help with cybersecurity services and solutions. So really the conference is designed primarily to bring people together, connect people, share experience and learning. We're quite famous in the sense that none of our speakers are paid speakers. They're all selected and they go through quite an extensive selection process. So the quality and sort of the degree of expertise on the stage that delegates get to interact with and see and hear from is none like any other in the world. So we're quite proud of that aspect. And that's a little bit about Cybercon. It only occurs in Melbourne, Victoria, because effectively that's the cyber capital of Australia.
That's great, Damien. Thank you very much. It's just really interesting to see how much of a scale market Australia is now. I think we're a top 10 cyber revenue market globally. So the timing of this conference is fantastic. We're investing to take the time and take a US delegation to this conference. It'll be a bespoke delegation, so we'll also be organising a cybersecurity roundtable, really focused on the impact of AI on cybersecurity and the role of government in terms of developing regulations and growing cyber talent. That'll be a real focus. We'll also be delivering a bespoke fit-for-purpose B2B matching program for delegates. And then we'll have a keynote reception and also a networking forum as well. And Dr. Charmaine Ramasamy, who's our Senior Director of Investment here in San Francisco, will be leading that mission and be with the delegates at the conference in Melbourne. So thanks again, Damien. I really appreciate that. David, I might ask you if I could to give the team online today some insights into Australia's overall cybersecurity ecosystem. We'd love to hear what's going on in Victoria, what's going on in Australia, and what actions the government's taking to really focus on boosting cyber resilience.
Yeah, thanks, Nigel, and thanks, Damien. And you're absolutely right, Damien. Victoria is Australia's cyber capital, and it's something that we are incredibly proud of as well. Folks, I'm Victoria's Chief Information Security Officer, looking after more than 1,900 government organisations, all facing a common cyber threat and all with a keen interest on strengthening their defences and protecting the data that they hold as well as they possibly can. For us, right here in Victoria, we were the first state in Australia to release a government cyber strategy, and that's all about improving government cyber resilience, so defending the systems we have and protecting the community data that we hold. We were also in 2021 the first state jurisdiction to extend our gaze and really start looking at how we can improve cyber resilience across industry and the community as well. We know that none of that is possible if we don't also support a thriving cyber ecosystem right here in Victoria. So as a state, we're absolutely committed and investing in not only growing our own local talent, but attracting the world's best talent right here into Victoria as well. So it's a real privilege to have the chance to chat to all of you today. To talk to you about what's happening a bit more broadly though, and perhaps just at the national level for a moment. In 2021, the Australian government invested $10 billion in improving the nation's cybersecurity. You may be aware that we are going through a process now to redefine Australia's cybersecurity strategy. And we do have the very bold but noble ambition of becoming the world's most cyber secure nation by 2030. For us to get there, we know that we need to create that secure economy and thriving cyber ecosystem. We also know that it is incredibly important that we build resilient critical infrastructure and a resilient government sector, as well as supporting our communities more broadly to counter those common cyber threats that we face. We know that we already have a great reputation as a trusted and influential global cyber leader, and working in partnership, not only across governments within Australia, but across private industry at home and abroad, is so critical to our success in becoming that most cyber secure nation. So really exciting opportunities for us locally, really exciting what we're doing at the national level, and really looking forward to what Damien and the team are putting on very soon around the world's best cyber conference. So I'm pleased to be here and happy, of course, to take any questions that we have as we go through this morning. Back to you, Nigel.
That's great. Thanks a lot, David. I really appreciate that. Thanks for your time today. One of the opportunities we've got today also is to hear from two of our most senior industry leaders, and I'm really excited to welcome Kurt and Susie to the conversation. Kurt, I've got a question for you first, and Kurt's the CEO of Tesserent, ASX-listed cybersecurity company. Kurt, we'd love to kind of hear from you about how you could share with us your experience in finding and growing talent in this sector in Australia. It's a question we get a lot here in the US. What's our talent like? How do we grow it? How do we find it? Love to hear from you how you approach that aspect in Australia.
Thanks, Nigel. Probably, I probably need to put a bit of context around what we're doing at the moment, because I think that's the most relevant sort of storytelling I can do in terms of our Tesserent Academy that we've launched. We launched it 18 months ago, but it's only really come to fruition this calendar year. I mean, Tesserent we're over 500 people now in strength. 30%, a third of that workforce live in Victoria. That's the culmination of 13 different acquisitions over the last 3 to 4 years. So we've been able to bring groups of people together from different backgrounds within the cyber industry. We've obviously added to those particular businesses. We've integrated those businesses into practices, and we've organised ourselves as we've moved along the journey. And obviously, one of the challenges that people like Susie and myself has had, and Damien's had it at the university. We've had it at in the government, obviously, with what John's been doing, is really hanging on to developing people, hanging on to good people, and really finding the talent that we've needed to fill those roles. So our 13th business we acquired was actually a training business. It had been around for 30 years, headquartered in, not in Victoria, but certainly operating in Victoria. We moved that business into Tesserent about 6 months ago, and we've been developing building out their training programs to develop 3 main things, working with our clients, because all of our clients that we do consulting and managed services for, we found that they needed additional talent in-house. You can't outsource the entire cybersecurity problem. You have to take accountability for it internally. So we've been working with businesses and governments around building their own internal and strengthening their own employees' knowledge around cyber. We've been working, obviously, that business with developing our own workforce. One of the recent programs we launched was to train 100 students in 100 days, because we recognised that students that come out of tertiary or TAFE educations are not necessarily readily employable from once they've finished their education. They need to have close mentoring. So we developed a crash course 1-week program to strengthen some of the theory that's taught in some of the institutions, and then also bring some of our senior consultants into the program to actually do some practical work with the students. Out of that, we feel that out of the last batch of 100 students we did, we'll be hiring 20 of those people right out of the bat. So I think that's just a practical example that we said, we couldn't sit back and wait for government. We couldn't sit back and wait for industry. Clearly, it's a lot better now than what it was 5 or 10 years ago. We used to have to import a lot of people on visas to catch up with the talent. We've still got a good amount of those people in our workforce today that have come and relocated from other parts of the world because we've gone and sought them globally to bring to Australia. We don't have to do that as much these days, but we really needed to accelerate what we were doing with our own talent by actually, we went out and acquired a training business and set up the Tesserent Academy. So I think that's probably the best way I could answer that question, Nigel.
That's great, Kurt. Thanks for that. Maybe 1 or 2 areas of opportunity that you see in the market. There's a lot going on in the market, but what areas, from your perspective, are you seeing as growth opportunities?
Well, for us, we're potentially a services business, so consulting continues to grow for us. Some of our investors think we're very heavy in consulting, but I actually talked to them about saying, well, that's really where we land and expand with clients. We have to take clients through a strategy. We obviously work a fair bit on managed services. We work on technology. So really, we're across all the realms of people, process, and technology, which are the 3 things, whether it's IT or cyber, that never changes. Clearly, the people aspect, the processes are well documented. The frameworks are out there. They need reinforcement from government and from businesses to actually want to follow the processes and put in place frameworks. Technology, well, there's a never-ending supply of technology. There's hundreds, I don't know how many startups happen every month now out of the Valley or out of Israel, but You know, we've got tons of technology providers that rock up at conferences like Damien says, yep, if you only had my bit of technology, Medibank would have never happened. And of course, we all know that that's really baloney. So it really does come back to people is the major factor in ensuring that people can improve their cyber resilience, to reinforce the processes that are put in place, and to just generally have good governance and good techniques around managing cyber risk.
That's great. Thanks, Kurt. Susie, I'll pass over to you. Same question. You're running a fast-paced, successful business in Victoria. Where do you see the market right now? Where are some of the opportunities in the cyber market? What are you, as a company, focused on, and where do you see the future going in the market?
I think one of the things that really sets apart the Australian cyber ecosystem and industry is how collaborative we are. We recognise here in Australia, just culturally, that we can't do it all ourselves, and we're very open to collaborating with other companies. For ourselves, we're focused on supply chain assurance because when we're focusing on critical infrastructure, every supply chain has very, very small businesses as well as very large ones, and the solutions out there for supplier assurance at the moment don't cover those very small ones. So we're working with other companies that already have the technology that can help large businesses to provide the assurance that they need to, and we can do that for the very, very small ones. So one of the things that I most enjoy about attending the cyber conference every year is, first of all, getting to see many of my friends that I haven't seen in 12 months except for video calls, but also being able to really learn about the other products and services that are being made available, whether they be by Australian companies or international, and finding new ways to partner across industry to build out more holistic solutions for us to be able to beat the bad guys.
And just on just sort of digging down on that a little bit, in terms of verticals, we've got globally sized verticals in Australia, whether that's financial services, resources, the government sectors, is quite dynamic. Are there verticals that are jumping out to you, or is this a horizontal issue that is kind of, applicable to the wider Australian economy?
What we're finding is really those industries and verticals that are captured under the security of critical infrastructure legislation that was recently introduced. They're the ones that are most actively working on finding new solutions, trying new innovative ways to be able to secure both their own infrastructure as well as their supply chains. So they are the verticals. The good thing is there's a number of them. So there's a lot of industries here in Australia that have really woken up to the challenge and are actively facing into the issues that we're all facing collectively. Yeah,
thank you. And just on that question on talent as well, I mean, anything to complement there on what Kurt covered in terms of that talent focus? Where do you see the critical kind of points are and investments that are being made when it comes to that future talent in this area as well?
We've been really fortunate at Cynch in that because we're attacking a problem that very few other cyber companies attack, it means that we can be very diverse in terms of the number of different backgrounds that we can tap into in terms of building out our skills and talents. So we've had staff that previously were travel insurers that have come across to working for Cynch. We've had people that have run very, very small businesses and have retrained themselves in cyber. So we're able to actively go after talent that perhaps has been ignored by the cybersecurity industry in the past, because what we're looking for are people that can understand small businesses. We can teach them cyber. You can't necessarily teach people to really truly understand what it's like to run a small business.
Yeah, great. Thanks a lot, Susie. Kurt, one last question for you. You've been in this industry some time. Love to get your perspective on where cyber has changed at the board level. In the last 10 years, where does that come up on the board agenda of Australian publicly traded companies? Kind of that prioritised list. Where are you seeing it now versus, say, even 5 years ago?
Yeah, I think, Nigel, 5 years ago, people like myself were really going to companies C-level and telling about all the horrible tales of things that have happened in the US, and if you don't do this, this will happen to you. So there was a lot of storytelling around that. That really doesn't need to happen. That doesn't happen anymore because boards, by very large, get it. And have attention around it. I think there's still some catch up to be done from where Australia is in relation to other markets, in the UK and the US. However, there's no shortage of attention, and clearly the events of the last 12 months have sort of accelerated that. So yeah, it's really in a much better shape now than what it was. We do a lot of presentations, a lot of discussions, a lot of frameworks and strategy sessions are done at the board level these days. Not even in the bigger end of town, but even in the middle market. Not quite small business yet, but certainly in that middle market, there's a lot of attention being paid.
Yeah, it's great insight. Thanks, Kurt. I really appreciate that. And I'm going to pass over to you. Love to hear and from you about some of the support that's available for US businesses that are considering coming down to the cyber conference. So, and I'll pass over to you. I know you've got a couple of slides you'd like to share with the group today as well. But thanks for Kurt, thanks Susie. But and if you could tell us a little bit more about some of the support that's on possibility for delegation members, that'd be great.
Okay, welcome everyone. You know, what we have found, next slide, Andrew, and go past that one, next slide. What we have found is that throughout the United States, the states actually have a great deal of money that can help companies. This money comes from the Small Business Administration. So if your company is a small business, generally under 500 employees, except in Colorado when it's 200, you are able to get as much as $15,000 through your state for this program. And I know cyber is not selling, for example, a widget or a piece of equipment, but it is for services, and cyber services is considered services. So these funds can be used in a whole bunch of ways. Next slide. So it could be training. It can be participating in a trade mission, like what they're talking about here, designing marketing, website globalization, paying for subscriptions and services the U.S. Department of Commerce uses. I'll talk about that in a minute. And to participate in trade shows and workshops. So if there is a trade show or conference like this show where you could actually exhibit, part of that exhibit cost will be covered, and it may include some of your travel costs. Next slide. So the other thing that all companies in the United States have available is the services of the United States Commercial Service. And these are trade professionals that are in every state, and also these trade professionals are in the overseas embassies and consulates. I was a regional director of commercial service for many years, and we helped thousands of companies like these companies and goods and services do B2B matchmaking in overseas countries, research, trade event support. It is a great opportunity to find a trade professional that can help you in any country. And we've got the US has a great team in Australia that also have some cybersecurity folks that are very good. So if anybody wants this slide presentation with the links, I know that Andrew can send it out to you. So basically there's money available if you're a small company, and there's services available if you're any US company. And just take advantage of them because they're there, you're paying your taxes for it, and it's very worthwhile.
Great. Thanks, Sam. That's really helpful and practical for people that are considering going. Look, anybody that's got any questions, please put them in the chat. I wanted to thank all the panelists today. It's been a whirlwind in 30 minutes. Just as a reminder, we've taken a delegation down in October. We've got a great team in Melbourne as well. The Invest Victoria group, which is based in Melbourne, does a fantastic job at business matching. And we're working as one team with them here from the US on the mission going down in October. So look, thanks to all. Again, call to action. If you'd like more information on the mission, we'll be focused, as I said, on putting together B2B meetings. We're doing a roundtable and networking reception, and also looking at ways that we can directly connect into potential partners and customers. But thanks all for today. No questions in the chat, so I think we've covered off everything. We'll follow up with people in terms of links and information, but I wanted to thank everyone for the panel today, and look forward to engaging further. But thanks all.
Thanks, Nigel.
Great.